Hi, my name is Justice, like it says up there. So a woman was out for a walk one day and came across a construction site where 3 men were building something. She was curious what they were working on, so she stopped and asked one. Clearly annoyed at being interrupted, he looked up at her and said, "Can't you see? I'm laying bricks." That didn't really answer her question, so she went to the second guy and asked him what he was building. He replied very matter-of-factly, "I'm building a wall that's 30 meters long, 10 meters tall, and 30 centimeters wide." Then he turned to the first guy and said, "Hey, you went past the end of the wall. You need to take off that last brick." Still not satisfied, the woman went to the third and final man and asked him what he was working on. Even though it looked like he was building the same thing as the other two guys, he looked up with excitement and said, "Oh, let me tell you, we are building the greatest cathedral the world has ever known." And she could tell that he wanted to tell her more, but he was interrupted by the arguing between the other two guys about what to do with that one extra brick. So he turned to them and he said, "Hey, guys, relax. It doesn't matter. That's going to be an inside corner. We're going to plaster over the wall. No one will ever know the difference. Let's just move on to the next layer." Now, a couple months ago, Atlassian sat down and tried to come up with a vision for the next 10 years of our company. Atlassian exists to unleash the potential of every team through the power of software. That's the cathedral we're building. And like every cathedral from the beginning of time, it's really the community that's helping build it. That's you. We, you, me, all of us, we're building software that takes small teams and turns them into big teams. Not in size, but big teams in impact. That's the cathedral we're building together. Because we have this vision of the cathedral we're building, we know that one stray brick isn't the important thing. Changing the way millions of people work every day is the important thing. Now, I just told you a story about building a cathedral. A cathedral, right? That's a pretty big claim. Now, we don't really have cathedrals in Australia. Our idea of ancient history is something that happened in the 1970s. But I've seen pictures of them on the internet, and they look pretty big and impressive. So a couple of weeks ago, one of our wicked smart product marketers, who's actually here today, Dave Meyer, gave a presentation yesterday, sat down and tried to figure out how many actual human beings are using JIRA right now. It's actually not as easy as you might think. Old instances that don't have the analytics infrastructure, people that have still using JIRA but haven't renewed their license, things that are totally firewalled from the internet. So we can't be positive, but we're pretty sure that at least 6 million people are using JIRA right now. That's how many people you're helping when you make JIRA better. So just by way of comparison, if JIRA were a country, it would be bigger than Denmark. That's right, bigger than Denmark. They won Eurovision, and we didn't even get an invitation. Sometimes life's not fair. So JIRA 1.0 was released April 10th, 2002, over 11 years ago. 2 Unimates, almost 3 years before the term Ajax was coined. What was cutting edge then isn't anymore. And JIRA has always been flexible and powerful. That's one of the things people love about it. It lets you work the way you want to instead of telling you how you should work. But we've been on a journey since 5.0, 5.1, 5.2, and now 6.0, working to maintain that flexibility and power, but working to make the user experience smoother and more accessible. Now, we want to unleash the potential of every team. If someone's afraid to update the summary of their issue because they don't want to wait on JIRA, that's not unleashed potential. When we read things like that back in Sydney, it makes us angry and sad. Angry because we know we can do better than that. And sad because we know that there's a team out there that was expecting us to make their lives better, and we didn't. Now, the journey isn't over yet. Trust me, we know better than anyone what work we have left. But JIRA 6.0 is a pretty big turning point in the life of JIRA. The journey we've been on has been about making issues easier to work with. Easier to update, easier to find, easier to triage, so you know what's important now and what can wait for later. We've built a new query builder, so you don't have to master JQL to find the issues you're looking for. We made filters more prominent, so that you can quickly find the things that are important to you. We added inline editing, so that you can quickly update an issue and get back to work. Our analytics showed that 70% of all updates to an issue were just for a single field. So we wanted to make that as fast as possible. We got rid of full page refreshes and made JIRA a single page app. That lets us prefetch the next issue in a query so that when you go to the next issue, it feels instantaneous. We added a details view so that when you're dealing with a big list of issues, you always know the exact context of where you are in the list when you're triaging bug reports or in a planning meeting. We added keyboard shortcuts so that power users can fly through their day. We made performance a feature on both the front end and the back end because nobody likes waiting. We rounded off the sharp corners of our user experience the trip of the non-power users. And finally, I'm not actually sure we can take any credit for that one, but I agree 100%. We've worked hard to make JIRA fast, modern, and simple, but you'll have to provide the donuts yourselves. Now, JIRA 6 is more than just new features and a streamlined user experience. It's also the delivery in JIRA of the Atlassian Design Guidelines, our cross-product push across JIRA, Confluence, Stash, Bitbucket, Bamboo, everything to provide a sexy, sensible, functional user experience to everyone who uses our products. The Atlassian Design Guidelines are all about progress over perfection, and we'll continue to refine it. Every single designer at Atlassian has contributed to the design guidelines, and you get to take advantage of all of that design thought for the low cost of absolutely free. The design guidelines give you basic grid, layout, typography, iconography, colors, avatars, even keyboard shortcuts and writing style. It gives you controls, navigation elements, buttons, tabs, page footer, vertical nav, inline dialog, modal dialog, lozenges, labels, tooltips, type ahead, focus tasks, progress trackers. That's a lot. The good news is you get all of that too if you're using AUI. But like Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. You see, all of your users are going to expect you to start using the Atlassian Design Guidelines too. Not because it's perfect or the one true way, but because if you don't, things will feel off. Things just won't quite look right, won't quite feel right. At Atlassian, we've started calling that friction. Friction is all of the things that cause attrition or low conversion rates, all of the things that make users not passionate about your software, all of the things that make someone think, maybe I'll go try something else instead. If you're not using the Atlassian Design Guidelines, then for better or worse, you're going to be causing friction. Now, all the work that we've done to harmonize our products on the design guidelines means that you might need to make some small changes to your front-end code. CSS style rules might target elements that don't exist anymore, or the style rules might not be necessary at all. And JavaScript or automated tests that use XPath or CSS selectors have the same set of problems. So what can you do to mitigate these problems, or at least minimize the amount of work that you have to do? Well, abstractions. Abstractions solve everything in programming, right? For JavaScript, that means using one of the several fantastic libraries out there now. At Atlassian, we're big fans of Backbone.js, but there are other great choices too. For automated tests, that means using page objects. When you've encapsulated your DOM operations in a page object, you only have to make a change in one place instead of hundreds of places when the DOM changes. Now, this is important because the design guidelines are always evolving, and we're going to continue work in this area during the rest of the JIRA 6.x releases. The design guidelines are the biggest user-visible point of 6.0 compatibility, but they're not the only one. When you're dealing with a big, mature product like JIRA, we always walk the tight wire balancing act of trying to provide a stable platform for our users and our ecosystem, but also wanting to make massive changes to keep JIRA relevant for the next 10 or 11 years of software development. Now, I don't know if you've seen the documentary Man on Wire about the crazy French guy who put up a tightrope between the Twin Towers in 1974. It was 42 meters long, but 416 meters up. He talks about the moment of truth when he has 1 foot on the building, but 1 foot on the wire. He said, I had to make a decision between shifting my weight between the one anchored to the building to the one anchored on the wire. This is the end of my life to step onto the wire. but something I could not resist called me up on that cable. Now, many of you probably know that same feeling, either from your personal or business lives, something irresistibly calling you to step forward. A big release of JIRA always feels like that to me. We've got one foot anchored on what we know, what we've always done. The other one, that's the one that leads us into the future. Now, back during JIRA 5.1, we wrote this big, long page on developer.atlassian.com telling the entire world that when JIRA 6 came out, we would be enabling auto-escaping of attributes in JIRA's velocity template engine. Now, auto-escaping has been the default behavior of every web framework and template engine for a long time now. Unfortunately, JIRA's a bit older than that, so we were late to the party. So anyway, we wrote this big, long page telling everyone this was going to happen, and I'm pretty sure nobody read it. I didn't read it. I'd be surprised if any of you read it. So, surprise, JIRA 6 is here. Now your velocity templates get auto-escaped. You're welcome. No thanks necessary. Of course, this does mean you need to make some changes to your templates, or you could end up with some nasty double escaping problems. And nobody wants that. It's not very pretty. So you can either add an HTML safe annotation to the method, or you can make sure that the velocity reference ends in HTML. Either way, you're telling velocity, hey, back off, man. I know exactly what I am doing here. And I promise, cross my heart, swear to die, that I did not just expose millions of people to cross-site scripting attacks by mean hackers. Now, all of these changes are raising expectations. Stronger security, smoother user experience, just plain prettier. It's no longer 2002 with enterprise Java beans. We can't just solve customers' problems with the same old forms and JSPs. If you think of the original mobile apps versus what you expect to have on your phone today, that same evolution is happening with business software. We're investing in design and user experience because our users demand it. It's no longer a nice to have. It's what separates the best apps, the best products, the best add-ons from the second best. When everywhere else in JIRA is fast, modern, and simple, the best parts of the ecosystem will be too. Now, JIRA 6 solves one of the oldest and most voted on issues in Atlassian history, JRA 1549, ability to rename a user. First raised, April 15th, 2002, 775 votes. The need for this is pretty clear, right? In France, 91% of married women changed their name. In Austria, 93%. In Germany, 95%. So what do all these happy people feel when they come back from their honeymoon, sit down at their desk Monday morning, open up JIRA, and then get told they can't change their username? That's not a lust-worthy experience. Come on, JIRA. JIRA's all about letting you work the way you want to instead of telling you that it knows better. And there it was, saying you can't change your username. Humane software needs to support the needs of humans. Now, it might not look like much, just a text field. But there are a lot of changes underneath the covers to make this seamless to the end user. Now, the team lead for this back in Sydney, Mark LaSalle, during JIRA 5.2, or 5.1 actually, he added a checkbox to this form. That one down at the bottom that says active, lets you activate and deactivate users. Now he's added a whole text field. You can see that his front-end skills have improved dramatically. We're very proud of him. Oh, sorry. Previously, that username was used as both a display value and as the primary key for the user. That was unfortunate. We've introduced a new user key, an immutable user key that will refer to the same user across changes to the username. This user key is what you'll use to store references to a user when you persist data. That user key is what all database storage in JIRA is using now. So as I said, there are a lot of changes to the code to make this rename user functionality work. The biggest change was the introduction of a new application user object. I say new, but it was actually introduced in JIRA 5.1.1. That's how long we've been planning this. This application user object has that user key, the new primary key, as a field. We've also introduced an application users helper object that does safe, efficient conversion between the old user object and the new application user object. Now, like the slide says, it's best not to cache the application user. This actually isn't a new problem. It's always been there. It's just with the old user object, the problems weren't as bad. Previously, the problems were mostly cosmetic. So if you cached a user object and someone changed their name, you would be displaying John Smith instead of Jonathan Smith. With rename user, the problem can be a lot worse, depending on what you cache and what you change. You could start displaying data for the wrong user. That leads to security problems. That's kind of bad. So we recommend do not cache the application user ever, just to be safe. JIRA 6 also starts us on the long road to getting rid of SOAP. A lot of people have built up a lot of integrations that use SOAP. So getting rid of it wasn't an easy choice to make, especially when the benefits are diffuse and not always easy to see. Getting rid of a crusty feature, like when we got rid of trackbacks in JIRA 5, makes developing for JIRA easier, which makes developing things faster, which means customers get their solutions quicker. JIRA is big and complicated, so anytime we see a chance to make it smaller and simpler, we take it. So the first step in getting rid of SOAP is deprecation, which basically just means telling everyone that when JIRA 7 comes out, we're going to be getting rid of SOAP. Consider yourselves informed. Over the next couple releases of JIRA 6, we're going to be building up feature parity between the SOAP and REST APIs. It wouldn't be very nice to take away SOAP if you can't do all the same things in REST. So the first step for us was to audit the SOAP API, create a plan to ensure that by JIRA 7, every single SOAP method will have a corresponding REST method. So it may seem like all I've done so far is give you guys a bunch of bad news about all this work you have to do thanks to JIRA 6. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, all of this is going to distract me from adding to the core value of whatever it is I work on. Or maybe you're one of those annoying glasses half full types that see this as a really good reason to build a better, sexier, more compelling add-on. But JIRA 6 is more than just a bunch of mandatory work to maintain compatibility. It's also the beginning of a new set of opportunities. And this is where I personally think you'll play a big part in the next couple of years. Now, if you went to Sharif's Confluence State of the Union, he talked a lot about the blank page problem and blueprints. The blank page problem is when you open up Confluence, you see that blank page staring back at you, and then what do I do next, right? So project templates are JIRA's first steps towards solving that same sort of problem in JIRA. No one goes out and buys a tool. They buy a solution to a problem they have. No one wakes up one morning and says, I want to buy a bug tracker. That just doesn't happen. What does happen is they wake up one morning and they go, I can't keep track in my head of all the bugs and features that my team is supposed to be working on. How do I fix that? Well, okay, maybe not first thing in the morning, but you get the idea. So people like solutions to their problems. And they really like it when they don't have to figure out those solutions from first principles. Now that is what creating a project in JIRA historically looks like. JIRA's just a tool. But you didn't want to create a project, whatever that means. You wanted your agile team to get on top of their bug pile. Now, all of us in the room are pretty decent at JIRA, right? We know how to bend it to our will, how to take that default project workflow and turn it into something that our teams actually do. But we don't want everyone to have to be an expert in JIRA just to hit the ground running. We want to unleash the potential of every team, not just the ones with JIRA experts. Now, Ian's going to be talking about project templates in JIRA right after me, so this is just a quick preview. Project templates give you, as a plugin, discoverability and the ability to take control of the user experience from the very beginning. That's a plugin point. That could be your plugin up there in the Create Project dialog. Bug tracking, Agile Kanban, your kick-ass plugin. Now, that sounds simple enough, but what does that actually mean in practice? With the Atlassian On-Demand platform, we have the ability to run A/B type testing and see the results. So one recent experiment, very recent, just a couple weeks ago, we discovered that when a plugin had a project template, it increased the conversion rate by 9% just by having the project template. Now, all of us in this room have spent a lot of time with JIRA. We know what you can make it do. At Atlassian, we use JIRA for book purchase requests and employee recognition program, all kinds of things you might not think of at first. Our user surveys have shown that at least half of our users have also figured out that you can use JIRA for all kinds of things beyond just software development. But what about the other half of users? What about things even further removed from software development? Project templates let you take your expertise and packages it up into a simple solution that you can share with your users in a controlled manner. Now, so having a project configuration is a great first step, but lots of people have existing data that they want in their shiny new project. So say you've got an add-on that you've built a project template for a library book reservation system. And you know that librarything.com is the #1 website out there for tracking book collections. And you want these people who have bought your add-on to not have to retype years worth of data entry. You want to import it from librarything.com into JIRA. That's where JIRA importers come in. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that writing a JIRA importer is so easy a child could do it. That's the JIRA Junior version. But it is so easy that someone with hardly any JIRA experience can write one in pretty quickly. We have 2 brand new importers, a Redmine importer and a GitHub issue importer, that were written by 2 brand new Atlassians in their first couple weeks of joining us. That's how easy it is to reduce friction by importing data into JIRA. So what else can you do that you couldn't do before with JIRA 6? Well, there's that whole Atlassian Connect thing you might have heard about once or twice in the past day or two. With JIRA 6, we've been laying the foundation for JIRA's part of Atlassian Connect. A few of you have even been part of the birth and growing pains by following along on the public website. We've been trying to find the right balance between openness and control or sandboxing. Openness because we want as many plugins in on-demand as possible, but control or sandboxing because being a hosting provider brings with it a new set of challenges for security, availability, and performance. Now, I'm not going to bullshit you and pretend that we always get everything right on the first try. If you do, by the way, come talk to me afterwards because Atlassian is always hiring and I would love to get the referral bonus for you. But I'm pretty happy with the position we've got to with Atlassian Connect today. There are a lot of really good reasons to be in on-demand, but one of the biggest has to be the ability to affect the lives of hundreds of thousands of users today. And at our current growth rate, it won't be too long before we have 1 billion users in on-demand. You wouldn't want to miss out on that, right? I mean, there's a lot of zeros in that. So it's pretty clear that if you want to build a really awesome Atlassian Connect add-on, we need substantially better REST APIs in all of our products. After all, you really don't have a workaround available if we don't have a remote API for you. And that dovetails nicely with the SOAP API deprecation, which also means writing lots of new REST APIs. In JIRA 6, our focus was getting the foundation for Atlassian Connect in place. But we've also been working on making our REST API broader and richer. Atlassian Connect raises the priority of 2 new use cases. And those will be the 2 prongs that help us prioritize the new REST work that we do in the future. The first is changing JIRA's configuration. In JIRA 6, we added the ability for Atlassian Connect add-ons to create a new custom field remotely, create a new issue link type remotely. Most add-ons need to make some kind of change to JIRA's configuration or admin side in order to be effective. And we need to continue to make that easy with Atlassian Connect. And the second part is exposing enough data that you can create the awesome user interface that your Atlassian Connect add-on needs. That means things like not just exposing this issue status, but all statuses in a project. And once you know all statuses in a project, you can take an open source component like Select2 and build the UI that you need to deal with statuses. Maybe you're mapping statuses from JIRA to whatever your problem domain is. Or maybe you're building some cool drag and drop status sorter. Probably you're building something I can't even think of. In JIRA 6, we're going to continue to expose more of the guts of a running JIRA system so that you can build the Atlassian Connect add-on user experience that you need to wow your users. Now, some things are easy to expose and deal with in Atlassian Connect. Take web panels in JIRA. It's pretty easy to envision how those translate to an Atlassian Connect world. Web panel served by JIRA becomes an iframe where the content is served by your remote website. That's the 10,000-foot view at least, right? But what about remote workflow conditions and validators? So you're in Greenhopper, you're dragging and dropping an issue on a board, so you drag it, you drop it, and then JIRA calls out to a remote website that takes 2 seconds to respond. What does the user do during those 2 seconds? What if the remote website is down entirely and never responds? Or remote custom fields. Imagine you want to tie into JQL, and so you want to do a search of project equals foo and t-shirt size equals medium. How do we do relational operations if some of the data is in JIRA and some is in some random website on the internet? These are the kind of problems that we're working on today. That's just to get you a feel that some things are easier for us to deliver quickly than others. Now, just like you, we're always working to make JIRA better. Faster, easier to use, more scalable. But just like you, we can't solve everything at once. So just to give you a taste of the kinds of things that we're working on today. Clustering. Now, a lot of massive companies are running critical businesses on top of JIRA. 500,000 users, 2 million issues. Crazy numbers like that Mike and Scott probably never dreamed of when they started building JIRA. Now, those companies need everything that clustering can provide. Fault tolerance, failover, failback, scaling. We have a small team in Sydney spiking possible solutions to this right now. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's going to be hard. I mean, think about it. Retrofitting clustering onto an 11-year-old code base. But we know we can do hard things. That team is even looking at ripping Lucene out of JIRA if that's what it takes. More Atlassian Connect. We have the foundation in place. Now we need walls, the roof, and an interior decorator. More plugin points, more REST APIs, remote gadgets, remote custom fields, remote reports, APIs for the admin side of JIRA. These things won't show up immediately, but that's the future that the JIRA ecosystem team is working on right now. Simpler issue configuration. All of the UI work that we did on the front end of JIRA, we need to do on the back end of JIRA, the admin side. We need to make it simple, fast, and modern. The JIRA admin UI has a lot of friction. Now, true, once you figure out workflows and schemes of workflows and schemes of schemes, you can make JIRA do almost anything, but not everyone gets over that learning curve before they give up in frustration. We're fixing that. Now, a couple of years ago, one of our co-founders, Mike, told me that there are only 2 things you need to do to be successful. 1 was build awesome shit. And 2, I actually forgot what the second one was. But that doesn't matter, because this is about building awesome shit. At Atlassian, we want to build awesome shit, but we also want you to build awesome shit on top of our products. With millions of people using our products, we know that Atlassian can't solve all of their problems by ourselves. We can do hard stuff. We think you can do hard stuff too. Now, we've got 1 or 2 people back in Sydney who know JIRA okay, right? But when we look out at the marketplace, the ecosystem, the kinds of things that people build and sell, we're always blown away. I mean, who knew JIRA could do that, right? JIRA 6 makes it even easier for you to build awesome shit on top of it. And JIRA 7 is going to raise the bar even higher. Thank you.